So this time, myself and Thomas found ourselves at the Classic Mechanics Show at the showground in Stafford. This show is generally associated with European and Japanese bikes from the 1970s, 80s and 90s. And that's usually very much the case, things like this BMW. But there were some British bikes on show too. For example, we found this very nice Ambassador with its 197cc Villiers engine. And the BSA Bantam was very well represented too. In fact, I'd say the BSA Bantam Club probably brought along more bikes than pretty much anybody else. There were trials, road races, as well as the standard roadsters on show, as well as one or two really very specials. Because your eyes don't deceive you, that's an Aerial Leader 250 motor somehow shoehorned into a poor Bantam frame. Thankfully they've uprated the discs somewhat. It's also been re-engineered for reed valve induction, and I believe the Suzuki internals. But perhaps more amazingly is this Square 4, yes, Square 4 aerial, again in a Bantam frame. That's got disc valve induction and thankfully really good brakes at the front. Mako is something that you very much associate with off-road bikes, but in the early days they produced large numbers of scooters too. Their machines were well engineered and probably a cut above the normal Vespers and Lambrettas that you'd imagine in the 1950s. Myself and Tom had a really long chat with the very friendly guys from the Mako Owners Club. They were really good guys with tremendous enthusiasm about the machines.
The question is how much you need to really how much would you be gaining?
On the Ducati stand we found this absolutely gorgeous 750 F1 replica, and there was another bike pretty much the same in the racing pit too, so unfortunately we didn't get to hear that one run, but what a fantastic looking bike, eh? But Tom's newfound favourite Ducati is the Halewood replica. It's the first time you see one in the flesh, and I have to say he's completely smitten. That boy is never going to have any money. This lovely yellow Ducati wasn't actually on the main stand, but was on the Italian Owners Club stand. This Scrambler, however, was, and is absolutely gorgeous. The Italian Owners Club stand was absolutely crammed with some gorgeous bikes, including the Stellara, and so it was probably our favourite stand at the show. Having as it did some real rarities on show, including this very nice parallel twin horizontal engine motorbike. And if you're a fan of smaller bikes, there was of course a Gorelli Tiger Cross, in fact two of them. The Tiger Cross of course being one of the most sought after and now most collectible mopeds of the 1970s. And right next to it on the stand we found a Guzzi Stanello 125, which segues us very nicely onto the Guzzi stand. The Guzzi stand had a range of older machines on there, mostly of course the V-twins. They are the most common bikes that we'd find around in Britain, but there was an old horizontal single and this very nice 250 TS from the late 70s. These potent little two-strokes were real movers of their time, but you'd never seen a great number of them in the UK at all. We found this Guzzi California T3, one of the very first of the Calis, over on another stand completely. Now I'm a real sucker for 70s V-twins, so obviously I was going to fit the bike in. Over on the off-road section there is of course quite a number of bull tacos on show. These fine Spanish machines were dominant in off-road sports during the 60s and into the 1970s.
It's a bit of a shame.
But if you think Eastern Bloc countries couldn't make a glamorous bike, just check out this lovely Yawa California. Now the Hunt stand of course had the usual big capacity 4-cylinder sports bikes from the 70s and 80s. But myself, I've always been a bit of a sucker for their smaller capacity twins, real dual light pieces of engineering. There was even a stand for the CX650 and 500 turbos, all of their very own. They even had an engine on the stand demonstrating that turbo. The NSR 250, one of my favourite two-strokes and probably the best 250 motorcycle ever built. Back in the day, Kawasaki was not all about the mighty Z1 or KH 750s. They made some tasty little two-stroke off-roaders too. Similarly, the Suzuki stand had a good range of their machines, including most of their classic Big 4s, but also a good selection of their raucous two-strokes. After all, that's what Suzuki was initially famous for.
This gives me a good idea for a video, like one on Mad 250s. So got the Aprilia.
Call me a bit of an oddball, but I absolutely love these 4-cylinder 250 screamers that were produced by the Japanese during the 1980s and 90s. Few perhaps better than the FZR. 19,000 top end RPM, that'll do nicely.
Crazy, these things. Seriously crazy.
Yamaha RD Club had a stand all of their very own, not surprisingly because their machines are individualistic and in many cases a little bit crazy.
Well, they didn't know. The road bike didn't know, so it's basically based on.
After checking out the main hall, we moved outside to the race paddock, where they had a fantastic selection of race bikes, ranging from the big cylinder Nortons of the 1930s and into the 50s, but also those screaming two-strokes of the 1970s and 80s. And there was of course a square 4 Suzuki RG 500. An immaculate NSR 500, and this amazing Yamaha 4-cylinder two-stroke 700, which campaigned in the 1970s in the Formula 750 Championship. And a couple of these strokers were fired up in the paddock, and what an amazing sound they made. A great way to end the day as the weather closed in. Hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, don't forget to like and subscribe, and of course, thank you very much for watching.